Here's a hypothetical question I just asked myself. Would I have voted for Donald Trump if he had been the presidential candidate when I was a super evangelical? Around 80% of white evangelicals voted for Trump. So would I have joined them? In 2008, I was 18 and it was my first time voting. In that election, Obama was up against John McCain. At that point, I was still a super evangelical, although I would become an atheist about 2 years later. And I voted Republican. Because that's what I had been told. Now, what if Donald Trump had been the candidate in 2008? Or what if I had been an 18-year-old evangelical in the 2020 election? Here's what I think. Now, Donald Trump's absurd and ridiculous quotes could fill libraries, but there was one seemingly insignificant quote that would stick out to all Christians. He, like many Republican politicians, went to Liberty University to give a speech, which is basically like the Hogwarts for evangelicals. He stood before thousands of Jesus-freak Bible nerds and quoted the book 2 Corinthians. But he said, 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians! Now, to anyone who goes to church or reads the Bible, it would be completely obvious that he had never touched a Bible or been to a church in his life. It's all the more embarrassing when you think about the fact that of these many Bible nerds, some of them are actually learning Hebrew or Koine Greek because they wanted to read the Bible in its original languages. And he went in there and said, 2 Corinthians! To help you understand, that would be like Donald Trump going to a Harry Potter convention and saying something like this.
So we're all here because we love this guy, Gary Potter. Gary Potter, great guy, terrific guy. Met him a few times, Gary. Best pot maker in these great United States.
So it would have been abundantly clear to me that he was not a Christian. Especially when you add all of the terrible misogynistic and racist things that he said. So I feel like I would not have voted for him. I feel like I wouldn't have voted at all. There were definitely people at Liberty University and other white evangelical super Christians who were against Trump. And I feel like I would have been with them. But they were a minority, only about 20%. And the fact that more people could not see through his bullshit shocks me. On the other hand, evangelicalism and Fox News specialize in indoctrination, brainwashing, and fear-mongering. And many white evangelicals had always voted Republican, so they were voting for the party instead of him, or they thought he was a good businessman and would bring prosperity and save the economy, or they were really into his toughness or his apparent strength. Some people were just tired of establishment politicians, and they loved how he was against political correctness, and of course the 24/7 media coverage for years only focusing on Donald Trump, and of course the racism factor. The fact that he said 2 Corinthians just didn't bother enough Christians.